I always ended up at the same coffee shop after work. Not because the coffee was great, it wasn't, but because it was quiet enough to think without really thinking. She was always there before me. Same corner seat, same mug, same half-smile for whoever remembered her order. I didn't know her name. I just knew she liked her coffee black and always brought a small notebook, the kind people use when they're trying to remember how to feel something again. I noticed her first in the reflection of the pastry case, brown hair tied loosely, a pair of reading glasses she pushed up with her finger whenever she got lost in thought. Once, she caught me looking. I looked away too fast and pretended to study the sugar packets like they were equations. I guess that's how it started. Not with a conversation. Just the kind of quiet noticing that stays with you longer than it should. On most days, we didn't speak. Maybe a polite nod, a thanks, when she moved her bag so I could sit at the next table. I'd see her reading, underlining something faintly, and I'd wonder what kind of person she was writing to, or about. There was this one morning, though, when she looked up and said, "Do you ever get tired of pretending to be busy here?" It caught me off guard. I smiled nervously. "You noticed?" She half smiled back. "You've been opening the same book for a week. The bookmark hasn't moved." I laughed, the kind of small laugh that comes out of embarrassment. "Maybe I'm just slow. Or careful," she said, then went back to her notebook. That word stayed with me, careful. Days blurred after that. We fell into a rhythm that wasn't really a friendship, just a pattern. She'd be there, I'd be there. Some mornings she'd ask if I wanted her extra sugar packet. Sometimes she'd comment on the weather, or I'd point out that her pen was leaking. The kind of things people say when they don't want to say what they actually feel. She wasn't someone who tried to be interesting, and maybe that's why she was. There was something unfinished about her, like she was living inside parentheses. I started checking the time before leaving work, making sure I'd accidentally run into her hour. I told myself it was routine, not attachment. But then, one evening, after she left early, I found an envelope under her chair. No name on it. Just a folded piece of paper. It was open, maybe by mistake. Inside, in her careful handwriting, were 7 words. "I think of you more than I should." My stomach tightened. For a moment I thought, maybe, impossibly, it was for me. Then I saw the name at the bottom. It wasn't mine. That night, I stared at my phone longer than usual. Typed a message, deleted it. I didn't even know what I would have said. "You left something behind. Who is he? Why do I feel like it's me?" In the silence, I folded and unfolded the note again, the way she used to fold her napkin when she was lost in thought. Outside, the rain began. Inside, I kept rereading her handwriting until the words blurred. And somewhere between guilt and curiosity, I realized I wasn't just lonely anymore. I was involved. She didn't mention the note the next day. Neither did I. She just smiled when I walked in, as if nothing had been left behind. The same corner seat. The same black coffee. The same notebook, though she didn't write in it this time. I wanted to say something. "You forgot something yesterday," but it felt like walking into a private room without knocking. So I didn't. Instead, I ordered my usual and sat at the next table. For a few minutes, we stayed in our quiet routine. Then, without looking up, she said, "You ever write something you wish you could take back?" My heart caught. "Depends," I said. "Did someone read it?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe." There was a pause long enough to mean something. We started talking more after that. Not about the note, but about small things. How she hated winter but loved the way it made coffee steam look like breath. How she once wanted to paint but couldn't find the time after her divorce. How silence, to her, felt like a kind of honesty. I didn't tell her much about myself. Just that I was new in town, that I worked nights, that I liked people who looked like they had stories. She looked up when I said that. "And do I?" I shrugged. "You look like someone who edits hers too much." She laughed quietly, eyes softening in a way that made me forget how much older she was. The laugh wasn't loud, It was the kind that filled the space between us like lights slipping under a door. One evening it rained. Hard. The kind of rain that makes people linger longer than they should. She stayed, flipping through her notebook. I offered to walk her to her car with my umbrella, though it was barely big enough for one. We walked close, trying not to brush shoulders, both failing a little. She said, "You remind me of someone my son used to bring home from college. Always quiet. Always noticing things he wasn't supposed to." That line landed heavier than she intended. Her son. That's what made it risky. That invisible wall between her life and mine. I laughed softly, just to break the weight. "Guess I'm predictable." She stopped under a streetlight, her hair damp, and looked at me like she was trying to figure out something she didn't want to say. "Predictable isn't the word I'd use." Her voice had a tremor in it, not uncertainty, just restraint. We reached her car. She thanked me and reached for her keys. My hand brushed hers. "Just an accident." But she didn't move right away. It was one of those moments that lasts longer than it should, not long enough to be wrong, but long enough to remember. She smiled softly, almost apologetic. "You should probably go before the rain gets worse." "Yeah," I said. "Probably." I turned away, but halfway down the street, I caught myself looking back. She was still there, hand resting on the car door, watching the rain instead of getting in. And I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. She stopped coming for a few days. At first, I thought maybe it was the rain again, or work, or just coincidence. But by the fourth morning, when her corner table sat empty, something in me started to ache in ways I couldn't name. I told myself I came for the coffee. I didn't. When she finally showed up again, 3 days later, she looked tired. Not in the usual way. This was the kind of tired that happens after thinking too much. She smiled when she saw me. Not brightly. Just enough. "Did you switch to another coffee shop?" I asked. "No," she said, setting her bag down. "Just needed to remember who I was outside this place." Her words landed softly but with weight. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. We talked less that day. Still, every silence had its own pulse. She stirred her coffee without drinking it. I kept pretending to read. Between us, something had changed, like an invisible thread pulled tighter. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "My ex called. He's moving back. Wants to talk." "Oh." That was all I managed. She gave a short laugh, dry and thin. "I don't even know why I told you that. Maybe because you needed to," I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me for a long moment. That quiet, searching kind of look that makes you feel both seen and exposed. Then she said, "You're too young to talk like that." I almost laughed. "Almost. You say that like it's a crime." "Maybe it is," she said, but her voice wasn't teasing anymore. A few minutes later, one of her coworkers, someone I'd never seen before, walked in. A woman around her age. They greeted each other warmly, and when the woman glanced at me, her eyes lingered just a second too long, curious. "This is..." She started to introduce me, then stopped. Her coworker smiled. "Your coffee friend?" I smiled politely, but she looked uncomfortable, almost defensive. After her friend left, the air between us felt different, tight, fragile. She avoided my eyes for a long time. Then finally, "Maybe we shouldn't keep running into each other like this." The words should have hurt. Instead, they just sounded tired. "Okay," I said quietly. "If that's what you want." She didn't answer. Just sat there, fingers tracing the rim of her cup, like she was trying to find the right shape for her thoughts. When I got up to leave, she stood too. For a moment, we were close, closer than we'd ever been. Her sleeve brushed mine. She looked up, startled by her own reaction. I saw it then, the hesitation, the pull, the thing neither of us would name. Her hand almost reached out. Stopped. "Take care," she said softly. I wanted to say something, anything. But all that came out was a breath. She turned away first. And for the first time, I realized how dangerous almost could feel. It had been a week since we last spoke. I tried pretending it didn't matter, that I wasn't waiting for her to walk through that door again. But every chair scrape, every passing figure in the window made my chest tighten, just a little. When she finally came back, it was evening. The place was almost empty, just the sound of rain outside and the espresso machine winding down. She looked distant. Not sad, just somewhere else entirely. I didn't know whether to greet her or stay quiet. She made the choice for me. "Still here," she said, hanging her umbrella by the counter. "Still pretending to like the coffee," I said. That earned me a small, genuine smile. She sat across from me this time, not beside, not across the room. Directly opposite. It felt deliberate. We didn't talk at first. Just watched the steam rise from her mug. She was tracing the rim again, slow, methodical. Then, almost casually, she said, "My son's back in town. You probably remember him, I mentioned him once." I nodded. She kept her eyes on the table. "He saw me yesterday. Asked who I've been spending time with lately." I didn't know how to answer. Her voice faltered there, barely perceptible, but I caught it. "I told him it's just someone from the cafe," she continued. "And then he laughed. Said it sounded like something out of a bad novel." She gave a short, brittle laugh of her own. "Maybe he's right." I wanted to say something to make her feel seen again. But all I managed was, "You didn't lie." That made her look up. And for a moment, the air felt heavy. Like a held breath neither of us wanted to release. We walked out together after closing. The streets glowed faintly under the streetlights, rain turning the asphalt to mirrors. She pulled her scarf tighter. I kept my hands in my pockets. "I shouldn't have let this, whatever this is, go on," she said quietly. "You didn't let it," I said. "It just happened." She stopped walking. I did too. Her eyes searched mine, like she was trying to measure the cost of the next thing she'd say. "You're kind," she murmured. "And kind people don't always realize when they're being reckless." The way she said reckless, it wasn't a warning. It was a confession. Something broke open then. Not loudly, but in that quiet way a wall cracks before it falls. "I think about you," I said, surprising even myself. "More than I should." The rain softened. The city noise thinned. She looked down, lips parting slightly. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't make it harder." I almost said her name. Almost stepped closer. But then she looked at me again, really looked, and there was something final in her gaze. Not rejection. Not permission. Just a silent question neither of us could answer. "Do you ever wish we never met?" I asked. She smiled faintly, eyes glistening in the rain. "Sometimes," she said. "But not tonight." She didn't come back after that night. Not the next day. Not the one after. Her absence didn't feel like distance, it felt like erasure. Like someone had taken a line out of a paragraph and left the meaning unfinished. At first, I told myself it was fine. People disappear all the time. But the empty chair by the window, the one she always chose, made the lie harder to believe. I kept catching myself glancing at the door every time the bell chimed. It was almost embarrassing, the hope that lived in that reflex. A week later, I saw her by accident. At the grocery store, near the self-checkout line. She looked different, calmer, composed. Like she'd pressed a reset button I didn't know existed. She noticed me too. Our eyes met, and she smiled politely, like I was an old neighbor she barely remembered. "Hey," I said. My voice came out softer than I meant. "Hey," she echoed. "Haven't seen you around." I almost said you haven't been there. But I didn't. She glanced at her phone, then back at me. "My son's been staying with me for a bit. Keeps me busy." There it was, the twist I hadn't prepared for. The reminder that she belonged somewhere I didn't fit. "That's good," I said. It's good to have company. She nodded. It is. And just like that, the small talk ended. She picked up her bags, said goodbye, and walked away. It should have hurt more than it did. But what I felt was stranger, like someone had paused a song right before the chorus. A few nights later, I went back to the cafe anyway. Out of habit, I guess. The barista was new. My usual table taken. Everything felt rearranged. I ordered a coffee I didn't want and sat by the window. Outside, the reflection caught me off guard. I looked older somehow. Or maybe just tired. Then, halfway through my cup, I saw something familiar, a folded note on the corner table. Same handwriting. My name this time. My hands trembled a little as I opened it. Thank you for letting me feel seen. I didn't expect that. Maybe that's why I had to stop. No signature. No goodbye. Just that. That night, I drafted a message. I didn't mean to make it hard. I just didn't know how not to. I stared at it for a long time. Watched the cursor blink like it was waiting for courage. Then I deleted it. Because sometimes silence says what words would only ruin. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was almost closing time when I saw her again. She came in just as the lights began to dim, her coat still damp from the drizzle outside. I hadn't seen her in weeks. Long enough to convince myself that it was over, whatever it had been. She looked around before spotting me in the far corner, the seat she used to take. For a second, she hesitated. Then, she walked over. Is this taken? She asked, voice careful. I shook my head. It never is. She smiled a little. Sat down. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore, just real. I noticed small things first. How she folded her hands like she was holding something fragile. How her eyes didn't dart away this time. I wasn't sure if I should come, she said finally. I wasn't sure if I wanted you to, I admitted. She gave a quiet, understanding laugh. That sounds fair. We both stared at our cups for a moment, pretending they were more interesting than the space between us. Then she said, My son's gone back. The house feels different now. I nodded, unsure what that meant for me, or for us. She sighed softly. I've been thinking about what you said. About not knowing how not to make it hard. Her eyes lifted, searching. You were right. You didn't know. But neither did I. Something in me softened, the kind of ache that comes from being seen for what you didn't mean to show. I didn't come to fix anything. She continued. I just thought, we never really said goodbye. I swallowed. Maybe that's because it never really started. Her expression faltered, then steadied. Maybe that's what makes it easier to miss. The words landed somewhere deep. We sat there, both half smiling at the irony of it, how something so small could feel so enormous. After a while I stood up. She did too. The air between us felt almost kind. I still have your note, I said quietly. She froze for a second. You shouldn't. I know. I reached into my pocket, pulled it out, and set it on the table between us. The edges were worn now, the ink slightly faded. She looked at it, then at me. You kept it this whole time? I nodded. It wasn't about who it was for. I think I just needed to believe someone could feel that much. Her eyes softened, the same quiet look from that first day, when she'd caught me watching her reflection. I hope you do, she said. One day. For the right person. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then she reached out, her hand brushing mine, not enough to mean more, just enough to mean something. Okay? She whispered. I smiled. Okay. When she left, the bell above the door chimed once, then fell silent. I didn't follow her. Didn't need to. For the first time, silence didn't feel like an ending. It felt like peace. A year passed before I saw her again. Not at the cafe. Not anywhere I expected. It was a Saturday morning, late spring, and I'd stopped by the park after running errands. The same park I used to walk through when I couldn't stop thinking about her. The same bench, too, weathered wood, chipped paint, facing the pond. And there she was, sitting quietly, a paper cup in her hands, hair tucked behind one ear. She didn't look surprised when she saw me. Just settled. Like the world had finally stopped spinning too fast for her. Still drinking that terrible coffee? She asked, smiling. Still pretending to enjoy it, I said. We both laughed, softly, like people who'd already forgiven the past without needing to say it aloud. We sat for a while, not saying much. Birds cutting through the air. Kids running circles around the benches. Life doing what it does best, continuing. She glanced over. You look different. So do you, I said. Lighter. She nodded. I stopped underlining things in books. Just read them now. Let them be what they are. I smiled. Progress. Maybe peace, she corrected gently. She told me she'd moved to a smaller apartment closer to the lake. She paints sometimes now. Badly, she insisted, and still drinks her coffee black. I told her I'd switched jobs, finally started sleeping at normal hours, and that the cafe closed down last winter. That place had terrible lighting, she said. But good timing. The way she said it made something quiet shift inside me. When she stood to leave, she hesitated, same as before, but softer now. No tension. No restraint. Just two people who knew what almost had been, and what was enough. I reached into my jacket and handed her a small folded napkin. A souvenir, I said. She opened it, a coffee stain shaped almost like a circle, from years ago. The same kind she used to make when she'd lose track of time and let her cup sit too long. She laughed, shaking her head. You kept this? Guess I'm still careful, I said. She smiled, that same half-smile from the first day, only warmer now. Maybe that's why we found each other again. Before she left, she said, Same time next week? I looked at my watch. 8:47 a.m. Yeah, I said. Same time. And as she walked away, I realized, love doesn't always begin with a declaration or end with a kiss. Sometimes, it just settles quietly beside you, like a familiar cup of black coffee cooling on the table. Something ordinary, finally enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?